Okay, all right. Whew. Give me a word for a minute because Jasmine specifically asked me to share the slides with her, and then I did not. So it'd be very disappointing if it's not working. Okay, so everyone, again, I'm not sure if anybody answered the question or not because I see like no response in the chat. So I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong window or just nobody messaged anything. I mean, you're taking the time to be here with me. I'm very, very keen to know what are some of the takeaways that you hope to have from this session, or what do you hope to learn or hear about. And is this Slido or this chat? Um, okay, maybe you want to share the Slido link again. Maybe I'll go there as well and take a look. But you can feel free to put it in this chat. I can see the chat in my window. Maybe while I wait for that, I can introduce myself a little bit. I'm really keen to hear what you are here for. So I'm Janice. I'm the Southeast Asia Regional Lead at Google. I look after our Google Developer programs here in Southeast Asia. And maybe to share a little bit about my background. So if you see a lot of these pictures, right? So my life had not been a linear journey. It has kind of came across for about 15 years of my professional life. I've explored many different fields and industry, and I actually began my life as an entrepreneur. So I actually started as an I dropped out of school, be an entrepreneur. I failed my entrepreneurship, learned many business lessons, become an entrepreneur, helping startups and corporate businesses with their innovation and digital transformation projects. And then now I work together with startups and developers like yourself to find success leveraging Google's technologies. But at the heart of everything that I've been doing is always been about the people. So whether is it creating an environment or ecosystem for the Australian business community or the startup community or the developer community in the various countries across Southeast Asia, my heart has always been in people and how to help the community thrive is where I'm most passionate about. So this is my background and my current role at Google. I look after our Google Developer Group, Experts, Student Club program, as well as the Women Tech Maker program. We also run an accelerator programs across Southeast Asia. So in Southeast Asia, just like, Jasmine is one of our Google Developer Student Club leads. We have 146 Google Developer Student Clubs leads across Southeast Asia, 56 experts, and 36 Google developer groups. And of all of that, one of the program that my heart is the closest to is our Women Tech Makers program, specifically targeted to help women in tech thrive. And we have 23 ambassadors all across Southeast Asia. So I see some answers here. Okay, I see you want to learn a little bit more about the Google culture. This is maybe not super relevant to this, but let me see whether I can weave that in a little bit. If not, I can talk about it at the end. Learn more about how to succeed in the tech industry from Mary. That's great. The other one is being connected to other developers after this session. Well, I hope that y'all definitely take this opportunity to connect with each other. Maybe in between my sessions, you want to even drop your LinkedIn profile so that you can add each other in. There'll be a way to get connected. What are the things you need to look out for when building or joining a community, whether you will fit in? That's a really interesting one. Maybe when I talk about this session, I'll try to mention about this in the right place as well. And then if it doesn't answer your question at the end, we can repeat this again. So to share a little bit about our Google Developer Student Clubs, we have it across 6 countries, 55 cities, and 145 Google Developer Student Club leads. Jasmine is one of our leads here in Southeast Asia. And I tell you a little bit about this program because it's also relevant to how you think about building tech and developer communities. So when we start with building communities, you want to know what is the problem you're solving for. What is this community for? We don't just start something because I mean, you could if it's an interest group. You like to play chess, you start a chess interest group. You want to look for geeks to run together and you call it like geeks running or something. There's a lot of ways to engage with same interest group. But another way to look at it is, does the existing group exist, and what are you solving for? In my work with communities, I always think about how the program is meaningfully contributing back to the ecosystem, because we don't need to reinvent something that is already there unless, it's done very poorly. Are there ways that we can join a community? Sorry. So are there ways you can join an existing community, maybe become one of their volunteers and meaningfully try and change an existing community that is doing very well? Alternatively, we can also start something new if we feel that there is a gap in the market and we can solve for the gap. I'm sorry. Ever since I got COVID a month ago, I get this weird cough fit sometimes. Sorry. Okay, so GDSC. So GDSC, thank you so much, people. So GDSC, when we were building it, it was because we found that a lot of students say they graduate from university and they may or may not have the skill set to maybe go on to find a full-time job because maybe what they learned in school was not very relevant technologies. Or they lack even experience to find a job. So Google Developer Student Club was created because we want to kind of bridge that gap between the theory that you learn in school and actual practice. So you come together with a community, you learn latest technologies from from our Google technologies, and all these trainings are free, are open for you to access. You can practice it with your community. There are hackathons that are ran for you to participate and put these learnings into actions. And then from that outcome is to create impact among the community. So what the solutions that the students often build are great because they are solving for local businesses and local problems. And that actually also grow the community through grow their community and solve it through technologies. So from this, when we started Google Developer Student Club, first of all, we want to train the students in tech, empower them. Second of all, we want to make sure they get real life skills that they are able to use right away, and they have tangible skill sets that is not just in theory but to actually create solutions. And of course, the third thing that is really, really important as well is that we can help them to maybe be able to put things on their CV before a CV has any line items on it, right? Because when you graduate, you just graduated. But when you participate in a community, wait, screen look weird, not in full screen. Let me see if I can fix that. How about this? Is this better? Okay, great. Thanks for the feedback. Very helpful. Okay. And then the third thing I was saying that you can also then put line items in your CV. Maybe you were a core team member, or you were the lead, or you were the volunteer, and through this club you build solutions for local businesses and so on. And this you can also add into your CV as tangible experience that you have when you're looking for a job. So that was kind of what we were creating with Google Developer Student Clubs. I'm going to share with you some of the things that came out of this club so you can think about what they're all very, very different examples, and you can also think about then how you yourself will be able to look for problems and solve for them. So first of all, you think about what is it that you want to accomplish when you are, participating in something. This is SUTD in Singapore, and I think this is 2 years ago when COVID just started. So due to, the pandemic, their university canceled open house, but Caleb and his team decided they're going to create a solution to turn their open house from an in-person experience into a virtual model campus. So they built like a model of the entire school, and they use Dialogflow to create a chatbot for those who are visiting. So it became a great solution for their university, right? Because they can't do it in person. They turn it into a digital campus, almost like, now we call it the metaverse. There's a new word for these things now, but they also created a chatbot to interact with visitors who are interested in the campus. And then a little bit further away, this is in Zanang. So Hong and his team, they actually care a lot about localization because a lot of the content are in English, but a lot of their local communities only speak Vietnamese. So he and his team, dedicate their time and effort into helping to translate different Flutter and TensorFlow documentations because these are some of the popular topics that they like in the country. So by doing that, they allow more people in their country, not just their student club, but all Vietnamese to be able to watch these essential code lab videos and learn more about technologies. Instead of struggling with English, they have all these captions. Sometimes they voice over it. And this is an effort that they just took on because they felt very strongly about building up the tech community in Vietnam. And this is Krinza. So Krinza is one of the lead in Pakistan, and she actually was a computer science student. And for the first time, after participating in Google Developer Student Club, she joined a hackathon and she submitted her solution to our annual Google Developer Student Club Solutions Challenge competition as well, and emerged top 10 in a global category. So I think there were over 800 submissions, and her project was actually selected in the top 50, where they get mentored by Googlers, and then she was then subsequently win one of the top 10 position. For her, she's a woman in tech. She was an introvert. She was one of the very, very few women in the class as well. But she's gone on to do really great stuff and become really active in the community, even years after her graduation. And last but not least, a little bit closer to home, Indonesia. So Nor actually was inspired firsthand by a deaf person in the cafeteria. So she saw this person interacting with others and felt that maybe technology can help hearing impaired people to communicate using an app and smart glasses. So he created this solution with his club, and then they submitted it to like a hackathon as well. And it was actually one of the winners too, because they found a problem in the community that they could solve for, and then they worked together to use technology that they are learning. They are not working yet; they're all students to actually create these solutions to help the community. So when you're thinking about, what you're trying to accomplish, what could you invest your time into? What do you want to spend your time on? Think about, if your student life was a summary, what would your slide say if we're introducing you? And I think if you want to think about how to get started, I think the first thing is look for problems to solve. When I was a kid, my parents asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, I want to be a scientist and I want to be an inventor because I like the computer and I thought science was really fun. I love the experimentation. And then eventually I was like, actually, maybe everything's been invented. There's nothing to invent anymore. There's light, there's phone, this computer is done. So there's nothing for me to do anymore. And it's not true. There's actually a lot of problems to solve. Some of the solutions we've seen came out from say, Carousel came out from the desire to actually resell things that are sitting around to find a second life to O items is built on a theme of sustainability. If we think about, say maybe further away in Indonesia, I recently met with a founder who was a daughter of a fisherman, and she decided to actually think about how to help fishermen get market access during COVID because they are so far down the supply chain that during COVID they suffer a lot because restaurants are not ordering and their suppliers are not ordering from them. How do they put it onto an e-commerce platform and sell it direct to consumers? So then, she created the e-commerce platform to connect small-scale fisheries and farmers to buyers online and deliver goods directly to them. For example, there are always things that we can find problems to solve around us, whether is it within our student body, our community, our local businesses, and there are also a lot of, say, not-for-profit organizations that are trying to do this digital transformation thing and struggling. So maybe think about what is the problem you want to solve that you're passionate about, that you think you might have the skills to do so, and then just go forth and do it. And if you're thinking about building a community or even just a team to be able to do it together, find like-minded people, maybe build a team, define your mission, shape the plan. As we've all heard, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So shape a plan, have a clear plan of what you want to do, and execute it. And sometimes I think a lot of people get stuck with maybe around the mission or plan, they overthink the plan and then they don't get it off the ground. And it's okay to keep to execute something and then keep revising and reiterating. For startup founders, there is this saying, I can't remember who said it, but a famous investor. He said, if your first, I believe it's Reid Hoffman who created LinkedIn. He said, if your first project or your first app or your reiteration of your startup is not embarrassing, then you have launched too late. The first version of it should embarrass you. You know, there are so many things you want to do, but if you're waiting and sitting around and hoping that, it's going to be perfect before you do it, it's probably going to be too late. So make sure that you do things, just execute it, learn from it, because even if it fail or there are some hiccups or things that are not going right, you have that opportunity to learn and reiterate quickly. And the worst thing you want is that you spend, say, 2 years of your life, you build something and then you launch it and then you realize that, oh no, actually nobody really wants to use this. No, nobody has this problem. It's a very first world problem I created sitting in my bedroom. So you don't want that, right? You want to quickly go to market, launch it, and then see what users are saying as well. So when you're thinking about planning, don't over plan, just go ahead and do it. And of course, we were talking about community. Today is all about building a successful community, right? So there's this saying I really love. It says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. Because when you have a team, especially if it's a complementary team, you can go a lot further together. So in my team, I have a team, we're 5 of us that looks after Southeast Asia. And when I was thinking about building up my team, because I had the opportunity to build up my team when I first started in this role, I asked myself, what is my weakness, or what are things I perhaps are not a big fan of, not passionate about, or don't enjoy doing. So then when I'm building together a team, I look for somebody. For example, I've done operations before, but I don't enjoy it. So I find somebody who's operationally very, very strong so that she can support me and complement some of the skill sets that I lack. For example, I'm not an engineer by training. So I struggle with things like maybe app script and automation. So I have people in the team who are very, very strong in that. So know when you're building up a team, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses, and be very, very aware of your weaknesses and how can you bring people in to actually support you to help you become more successful. We're all successful when we're better together than we are alone. So be very cognizant of what are the things that you do good and things that you don't do so good on, and then look for people that can support you with that, whether is it in a passion project right now, a community project right now, and maybe later in your career. I mean, early in your career when you get a job, then it is just what it is, like you got to work with people. I've been working for 15 years to get to a point where I can select my team, but it took 15 years. Okay, so when you get to that point, then think about, make sure that you don't just hire all the people who are just exactly like you, because people who are just exactly like you is also very likely going to have the same weaknesses and lack of interest in the same areas of things. If you all don't like to do the same thing, who is going to do it, right? So there are some people who are going to enjoy different things. It's always good to find complementary teams. So how to begin? All right. So when you're starting up, say, community or a club, either there's an existing one that you're working on, or you're setting up a brand new one. Find your core team. Who are the people that you can call on to support you? And then just get started doing events and activities. And along the way, maybe think about, what are some partnerships that you can have as well. So partnerships can be really, really important. An example, when I first started running events in person in the Google office, we realized that it was very poorly attended by women. So the events could sometimes be like, less than 10% women attendee rate. And I was wondering, why is this so bad? Because the community somehow has kind of been lopsided, and all the guys bring their friends and the women are not attending. So we then created partnership with other women in tech groups, like Women Who Code, She Loves Data, and I think there are quite a few other coding girls and so on that we started working with to complement our program, and that increased our diversity not only in attendees but in speakers as well. sometimes think about what are the partnerships that you want to do. Perhaps, you want to do an event on machine learning, and you realize that, oh, there is a very, very big data science community, or a TensorFlow or machine learning community. Or you realize that when you are wanting to do an event, say around digital marketing, and there's already an existing subgroup that are meeting up regularly. How can you maybe partner with them so that you can come together and become even stronger, and even network across communities as well? Then, okay, so starting a club, that was kind of what I was saying. Get started, build the right people, and get started. Know what is it that you're solving for, and that actually brings us to the next one, right? You need to understand who your audience are. So there's two things. One is, what is the gap you're solving for? Who are you attracting? Who are the members of your community? You need to understand your audience, because very often I have seen events that just talk at people. And when you are talking at people, they may or may not be interested in the topic. So you need to constantly get feedback and gather stories from the community as well. What is it they've enjoyed? What is it that they would like to hear more about? What is it that they would like to learn about? So if you build a good network of people who participate and are actively involved, you can also then, survey them and talk them through your different plans, and maybe ask for some feedback. So feedback can be done through one, survey, and the other one, then that's like quantitative, right? So you can do it a bit quicker. Another one, qualitative. You can either ask open-ended questions or actually meet with some of them for coffee. Something that I like to do is small focus group. So I'll bring in people that are quite diverse, because I look after Southeast Asia. So diversity to me can be different countries, different gender, different job role types. And then I do small little focus group. And I ask them for their feedback on certain programs, and ask them, what do they think we can do better? What would they like to learn more about? And these focus group then help us to guide the survey that we're even running in the first place, and then help us guide our program to make sure that we're constantly producing programs and events that the community wants to hear from. Because we don't want to do sales pitch, basically, essentially, if you're just shoving things down people's throat. It's like a little sales pitch that you're doing, right? If they're not interested in it, you will lose the community because it doesn't resonate. So building your core team. So when you're building your core team, for example, a Google Developer Student Club, we ask that look for people that are both technical and non-technical, and your core members who are leading it as well. And why is it that you want to find this complementary? Again, is because they have different skill set. I know in a lot of the student clubs, the lead probably is from the IT, computer science, engineering faculty, and then the core team member might consist of people from business and marketing, because they're helping, to build up the event page, to market the event, to build the community, to write the social media posts, to write the newsletters, for example, while the technical people are creating the content, practicing to become the technical speaker or running workshops. So everybody have different skill sets, and they can come together to build a really wonderful community and great content when they have complementary skill sets. So there is a question about how do you ensure there's diversity and inclusion in a team, and hopefully this will convince you, and then we can talk about how we can do it. So many people believe that if you have people from diverse background, it will be a lot of disagreement and less effective outcome, because you want to have people who think like you and do the same thing as you do, and therefore things will move a bit faster because you're more alike. But actually, that's not true. When you have people who are diverse backgrounds, you actually have different point of views. You become more successful because you discover this a lot earlier, because your team is already diverse. So the outcomes are better in a much shorter time too. So I really, really encourage you to avoid groupthink and build a diverse core team. And when you say, how do you ensure there is diversity and inclusion in a team? I would say that make sure that every minority is represented if you can. So in this case, in Singapore, let's say if we say in Singapore, who will be the minorities? Maybe we have our Malay friends, our Indian friends, they are minorities. If you think about in terms of this is the Geeks Club, right? So in Actually, in this room, I see quite a number of women, but usually women is the minority, so include the women as well. And also, one of the stats that we have found, in many of the research is when there is a woman speaker or when there is a woman lead, very often the core team and then the following events, as well as the attendees, are more diverse as well, because people want to go to event that has somebody who they can resonate with. So if this is like a all guys club and it's always all guys speakers, and then all your events are always attended by all guys, then the women, even if they were to come in for the first time, they will feel not very welcome. They're like, oh, I'm not sure if this is the right community for me, I'm not sure if this is the right place. Maybe the language, the way they think, the way they approach problems are very dude, so maybe they might feel that, okay, this community doesn't resonate with me. By having a diverse team, you help to also make sure that everybody's represented. Let's say if something the one the minority go like, hey, actually, don't you think that that one is a bit sexist? Or hey, don't you think that that way that we approach that, we can think about it in another way? Because they realize that, yeah, because they realize that there are challenges that we may not on our own think about. So always think about creating diverse team. If it takes you longer to find that person, or if it takes you longer to mentor that person to become ready to support you, do that, because sometimes you just have to go a little bit of an extra mile to have a more diverse and inclusive team. And it might not happen like right away. So like it's not like today you want to start a club. Okay, I'm going to find one Malay, one Indian, one woman, and then I'm just going to put them all in a room and hey, we got a club. Sometimes it takes time, right? So start to build these relationships and maybe invite them to come to the events first, invite them to be a speaker, invite them to, hey, would you like to be a volunteer with us? And then over time, put the team together. Because sometimes I think there's this question, how do you uh, solve disagreement? Maybe this is a question I will answer later. But especially when you start working with people as a volunteer, first, you start to realize that, oh, actually, we work well together, or maybe we don't work so well. So we're not saying that immediately just bring that person on board, but you could also then trial this relationship, right? It's like, when you're in a relationship, you date before you get married. So when you are when you're setting up a community, maybe, you volunteer with each other, or you work together first before you make them like your committee member, for example. So there are some things that you can do to try and mitigate that. All right, so the next one is understanding the roles. When you're creating a team, sometimes roles and responsibilities can be challenging because everybody thinks somebody is doing it, so then nobody do it. So make sure that R&R is very clear. So in our team, whenever we have a project, we have very clear project breakdown of all the different tasks and roles and responsibility. Is there somebody who's leading it and somebody who's supporting it, or is it completely managed by one person in each aspect, and who is maybe the overarching project manager? If you are the lead, very often I would say step away from a very, very essential item and be the overall project manager, making sure that everything is coming together. Because very often, if you are also stuck in all the nitty-gritty things, you might not be able to take a step back and make sure that everything is growing the way that it should, that the timelines are being followed. We do need a sheep hurdle, right? Even if you have a very strong team. And as a lead, or even like say a core team, make sure you treat everybody as a part of the team, because their support is very, very successful. There's this book that I really like. It's called Influencing Without Authority. When it comes to community, a lot of the times these people are not reporting to you, you're not paying them, they're not getting anything from you. So you need to think about, what are they driven by? What is their motivations? What are they looking to achieve? How can you help them be successful as well? And communicate in a way that is inclusive and supportive too. All right. And then the next thing is really action, right? I was saying don't sit around too long, just host something and get together. For example, you want to meet like-minded people in a particular interest group. Okay, recently somebody was telling me how he needed to, for his interview, read 10 research paper. So the interviewer gave him 10 research paper and say, next round of interview, let's discuss. He didn't have the time to do it, to read 10 research paper before his next interview. So he got together all his friends send them all the research paper, each person read one, and then come together, and I call it like a geek book club. So they basically then sit and discuss all the different research paper, like give a summary and then discuss it. And that itself is almost like a little community that they've created, and then they go on to continue to meet regularly discussing research reports. So this is like, one way that you can do something. Or if you have an interest group, say, you're all app developers, and you want to come together and learn new technologies on Android, on Flutter, maybe sometimes you want to figure out what are the best tools to use for creating different type of apps and best practices. You can also find like-minded people. Hey, who's interested in front end and or web app developments? Shall we meet up together? Some student groups are started by just saying that, okay, every Thursday I'm going to join this Google Meet call, or in person. I'm just going to sit here at this. I know Starbucks not very welcoming, but like an example, like I'm gonna sit at this Starbucks, and every Thursday I'm going to be there from 8 to 10 o'clock. And if you want to come and join me, and I've seen some clubs actually just started off from there. It started with that, one person saying that he or she's going to be there every week, and then more and more people start coming, and then they just happen to have a regular group of people who drop in every week to learn together. And that is also another way to get started, not having to overthink it, overplan it, and just go like, I'm going to be here. I actually was in a group before. I think they call it, I think some alpha morning people. I can't remember what it was called, but basically 7 a.m. every Tuesday morning, if I'm not wrong, we meet at a cafe and we just sit there and do our own work. So 7 to 9 a.m., we don't even talk to each other. We just sit down, say hi, and then we just do our own work from 7 to 9 a.m. to be extra productive and just to be around people who are the same, morning people who want to sit down and get shit done. So there are just some clubs that don't even require a lot of effort at all. It's just a commitment to get started, to meet like-minded people. So, all right. I like this saying, life is short, youth is finite, and opportunities are endless. So you need to find, or have you found the intersection of your passion and the potential for shaping positive impact? So, you want something that you love to be solving for something that is positive for the world. So, if you find the intersection, then it's not a job anymore. Then it's not just something that is a chore, but it's something that you really enjoy doing. And I think I'm one of the very lucky people who I really found the passion. I found work in my passion area. I love building communities. I love helping founders, business people, developers, individuals to find success in their life. And I never thought that I'll be paid for a job like that. In the past when I was younger, I thought maybe I'll be a social worker, I'll be a psychologist or something. But turns out I'm actually just working with a lot of founders and developers like yourself to make sure that you find the resources that you need, the community that you need, the answers that you need to become successful. And this actually makes me, really excited to wake up every day. In fact, as I'm calling you right now, I'm actually in a hotel in Bangkok. I just landed in Bangkok today because I'm going to meet with our Thai community here. And last week I was in Indonesia, and the week before in Vietnam, meeting with our communities to see what are their challenges, what are some of the things they're passionate about, because we want to build programs that suits them. So this actually brings me to the end of my topic. And what I'm going to do now is to jump into the comment and look through the questions. I'm not sure I have the Slido link. I might not have the back end to the Slido link. So if any of the hosts wants to jump in, feel free to, unmute yourself and read off the question. But meanwhile, let me just scroll to the top and see if I missed anyone. Okay, there's one on, let me write this down. There's one on Google Culture. That's a different topic. Maybe I'll address that later. And then how to succeed in the tech industry. Okay, I'm going to answer this question in a very short way. Keep learning. There is this stat that I was just reading last week when I was trying to present at an Indonesian event, is that 80% of technologies are outdated within 10 years. But yet, more than 80% of the workforce got their qualification 10 years ago. So, technology is one of those things that keeps changing really quickly. What you're going to learn in school today is not going to be relevant. Actually, 10 years is already a stretch. You'll be lucky that 5 years they haven't changed the whole thing. So make sure that you keep learning and staying on top of it. There's so many ways to learn technology right now, and you don't even need to start from being a developer. A lot of these things now are like no code platform or very few coding required. You understand the concept, it works. My background is not in engineering. I have a bachelor's in marketing, and I've been working in the tech industry for about 6 years right now. And I work with founders and developers, but I've learned and read enough of these technologies that I can tell you which are the technologies that work together, which are the things that, if you tell me what is TensorFlow for, I'm like, okay, this is for machine learning, for AI, Dialogflow is, one of our chatbot. It's super easy, no code platform. I know what all of our products are and what they are being used for, and maybe even like certain strengths and weakness for these things. And this is all through learning and listening to other people. When I attend a lot of developer events and startup events, and all of these are opportunities for me to learn. But a lot of the times, the what happens when I attend this event is I put all these notes into my phone, and then I go home and I search for a YouTube video that is going to dumb it down and explain to me what is API? How do you call an API? How does that actually work? And it is just amazing how much really good content is available online, for free too. And so I would say that, how to succeed in the tech industry, don't stop learning, just keep going. It never stops. Every day I wake up, I'm like, read tech news, I listen to tech podcasts. If I have time, I'm trying to learn the new technology or understand what it does. So to succeed in the tech industry, you just have to have lifelong learn. I mean, a lot of you are based in, I imagine most of you are based in Singapore. This is the SIT group after all. But the government always say lifelong learning mindset, the growth mindset. It is real. If you don't want to be replaced by whatever's going to come next, make sure that you constantly have a learning mindset. Okay, being connected to developers after this session. Oh yeah, I was suggesting that maybe you can drop your LinkedIn link there, and then you can just connect with each other. I suggest another way to meet developers is that maybe if you go to interest group. So I'm not quite sure if SIT Gigs you have your own like Facebook page or our Telegram group or WhatsApp group and so on, but many tech user groups do. So let's say if you're interested in data science, or you're interested in Android or Flutter development, there's a meetup group for that, or there is a Facebook group for that. Just join them, see what people are posting, and very often people will post maybe a Medium blog, maybe GitHub link to a project they're building. Maybe they are speaking at an event. Read it, watch it, comment on it. That's how I make a lot of my friendship. Is that I comment on things, or sometimes I reach out to them and go, hey, I thought this is a really interesting project. Want to have can we have a chat about it? To be honest, I mean, if I'm really really honest, I don't really reach out to people a lot, but very often I get reached out by people a lot. So LinkedIn, I hate it when people add me on LinkedIn and don't tell me where they saw me or where we met or whatever, because there are different groups of people on how they use LinkedIn. I'm one of those people who don't add people I don't know. So if you just add me and you don't tell me that, oh, we met an event or we've done something together, or I wouldn't even bother, because I don't know who this person is and I don't want to add this person. But at the same time, sometimes I would see okay, one time, this is like a head of a Microsoft startup program. He just added me blindly. I've never met him, don't know where he is, don't know where he even found me, but he just added me on LinkedIn. So I was like, he's very senior, right? No harm getting to know a new person. So then I reached out to him and say, hey, thanks for the ad. I don't believe we've met before, and I don't usually add people I haven't met. So why don't we fix this over coffee? Do you have time for a chat at this time? And yeah, we scheduled a call and then we had a chat. And that's another way that I meet people, because I just tell them that, you know what, I don't add people I don't know. So let's fix that problem and let's get to know each other. That's another really smooth way to just connect with people who just add you blindly, right? And personally, I do that only for people who is very senior, and I'm like, if they add me, never know what's in store. Network and connections need to be built. They don't happen overnight. I haven't looked for a job in a very, very long time. I think my last 3 jobs, including this one at Google. My previous one is at Thomson Reuters. Before that was at Unilever. All of my last 3 jobs was somebody who reached out to me, who I already know, who told me about the role. I didn't like just blindly apply for it, is what I'm saying. So I already knew the hiring manager, somebody recommended, or they invited me themselves. So, and all this is from years of building up network. So start your network building today. Start to collect your success stories today. So you do something amazing, open a spreadsheet, put it in. You speak at an event, add a line item in. I spoke at this event, X number of people. I created this project, submitted for this hackathon, top 10. I achieved this in for my this module or whatever. Little achievement, everything, just put it in and have some pictures or screenshots or whatever that you're doing across time. You will build up this amazing portfolio that when you're trying to look for a job or CV, build a CV, or even when you meet people. Another trick on LinkedIn that people have taught me is that whenever you add somebody, you just drop them a message immediately. So I might go like, hi Carlton, great meeting you at the SIT Geek event. Looking forward to connecting with you in the future. So next time, right, when this Carlton message me, I will be like, where did I meet him from? Then you actually click on message and you will see, oh, I met him from this event. So that's actually a really great trick, is that every first person you add, you send that first message of where you actually met and what happened. So then next time you can follow up. Especially when it's social, like LinkedIn, there are thousands of people in there. These are some tricks that you can use. Okay, moving along. I know I start to digress, but I just thought that was so interesting. That was such a important information that I wish I knew earlier. Let's see. Can students? Okay, I think that one Jasmine has answered. So next, um, um, okay, I think I've answered the diversity inclusion in a team. But yeah, more diverse leaders, more diverse team as well. How do you create a safe place for discussion in a diverse team so that everybody's view can be heard? This is a really interesting question. You see how Carlton has and Jasmine's created this event in such a way that you can add your questions anonymously. This is one way actually to create a safe environment for people to participate, because sometimes people are not comfortable revealing who they are, and they want to have a discussion on that topic though. So anonymous questions, Q&A, are very good for that. And also, for example, people don't always want to speak up, or sometimes, for example, I see a note saying that tech people are usually a little bit shy. Yes, there are maybe a little bit more shy than others. Also, perhaps some requires time to formulate their questions. In my team is mostly men. I don't tend to jump in and ask a question right away. I prefer to wait till the whole conversation has completed and ended, because I'm formulating a question before I ask it. So I'm not sure if it's a me problem or is it a woman problem, because I see other women who also do that. And because we need time to formulate the question and to think about it, and because we don't want to sound stupid asking the question, we might prefer to type it out or wait to ask at the end of the session. And so when you create something like Slido, it's actually great for discussion, because you are not just listening to the questions of people who are the loudest, who are the fastest, and to the people who are not afraid to show themselves, right? You are including people that potentially is not the loudest. They might be an introvert. They might be somebody who's soft-spoken, maybe somebody who don't want to be in the spotlight, or somebody trying to raise an issue that they don't want it to come back to them, for example. So safe space, anonymous rooms are a great one for that. Another way, right, is creating a safe environment, and this takes time. So within Google, just now there was a question around the Google culture. So Google is very good about trying to create a culture where everybody feels psychological safety. Because when you feel that what you say is not going to get you fired or demoted, or risk your bonus, that this is a place where you raise your problem. We are going to address it. If we can't solve it, we will address where we're coming from and so on. So as a company, that's what Google creates, a psychological safe place for you to be able to share your problems. There are a couple of walkouts that Google employees have done themselves as well, because they know that Google is not going to fire them, because they just like protesting lah. We don't like that you do things this way. So that's also how you can create more conversation by creating a safe place. This takes time, but it's always being open and honest and not critical when somebody is sharing. You're like, I hear you. Let us have a thought about it. If you don't have an answer right now, let us come back to you on this. And then really, really think about, debate it with yourself even. You know how debate teams, you pick a topic, 4 and 2, 2 and 4, and then you just go for it. Debate with yourself, what is the downside of this suggestion or of this different approach, and be really, really open-minded. Don't have your answers set in stone, and over time your team will realize that this is a safe place they can share things with. Okay, do you think it's better to work with friends or people you just met who are very well versed in technicalities? Um, Personally, I don't like to work with friends, or my friends know that I am hard at work. But this is like two very different questions, right? Like, working with friends. People I just met, I have no sentiment, I have no feeling about them, either way, so it doesn't matter. But when you talk about technical roles, for example, knowing the people that you work with, because you know that they're technically strong, actually can be very helpful. So, Jasmine is part of the Google Developer Student Club group. We have a Google Developer group for targeted at professionals in Singapore. He is now a CTO of a well-funded startup, and his entire team. So he was in his previous startup. He hired 4 people from the community that was volunteering together in the same Google Developer Group community. He hired 4 of them into the company. Then he left that startup and went to another startup as a CTO. And he brought almost half of them along and hired even more people that he knew from the community, because he knew these people are people who are passionate about learning at the forefront of technology, because they go to these events to learn. And there is a type, that he reckons hang around this community who are technical, and he's seen their work, he's seen them present at events, so he works with them. So I don't have a clear answer of like, yes or no. I think this could be a personal preference, but I think in technical roles very often people want to see that you have done something, even if it's not friend. um, if you share your things on GitHub, write Medium posts, share it on LinkedIn, so that people know exactly what is it that you're doing and what you're able and capable to do, there is always going to be additional opportunities that you don't expect as well. Yeah. Okay. Then next one. What is the ideal number of members in a team? I don't have the answer to this. Our Google Developer Student Club, some are as small as 3 core team members. Some are, I think one of the largest that I've seen is NUS. I think the first batch, they came with like nearly 60 people in their core team. Um, and this was like pre-COVID, and they did an event, and I thought they were running their first event, but it was just an event for the core team member, and I think 50, 60 people showed up. So the ideal number of members in a team is the number that is going to work for you. Are you a person who, you work better in smaller teams and getting everything done because it's easier to manage? Are you a person who wants to create many different leaders and then they go off and do their own thing, and perhaps you want to be a figurehead, you just want to speak at the events, but you don't actually want to do the organizing? There are many, many different ways to approach this. I personally prefer a smaller, tighter team, because it's just faster to turn things around. Again, personal preference. Okay, next question. What are the questions that you will ask your team to find ways to improve? Um, I always debrief a project. So whether it's an event or in-person event or virtual event or a campaign that we're running, once it wraps up, I always have a debrief to always ask, hey, what are some of the challenges that we experience? Let's note it down and share it with the team, because then somebody else who's doing something similar can learn from the challenges and the learnings and insights that we have, so that we can avoid having the same mistake again. In my team, we look after different markets. So while I look after Southeast Asia, we have a person in Indonesia, one in Vietnam, and one in Singapore, and they're all looking after different countries, but they're all running similar programs. So by sharing every single time their challenges and their learning, the other person who's running similar programs in a different market can learn from it as well. Okay, how would you recommend having good engagement with your community? Um, how would you recommend good engagement? I would say actually know who your audience is. Why I'm going on my colleagues are saying like going on a little world tour right now, because I need to meet my community. I cannot build programs and events without knowing who they are, what their challenge are, what they are passionate about, and how I can help them to be successful. I'm based in Singapore, so very early on I've already met the GDSC leads. Like, hey, let's come out for dinner. So I've met Jasmine in person before. And then when the world opened up, well, actually, I was very scared for very long, but then last month I got COVID, so now I'm invincible, right? So I'm traveling. So I went and meet the community, and when I'm when you want to know whether you're having a good engagement is, are you talking more or are they talking more? When you're trying to learn, right, you probably only speak 30% of the time, and then listen 70% of the time. If you go into a room that you're speaking 70% of the time, you're not going to be learning anything. So if you want to have good engagement with community, you want to understand what their challenges, what they need, then you need to make sure that you go prepared with a clear agenda. You know what is it you want to get out of this. Do you want to know what your community wants to hear about? You want to maybe find more people in your core team member. You want to maybe run a conference at the end of the year, and you're trying to find people who are equally passionate to start this together with you. Have a clear agenda, go in and then try and talk to people about it, ask the right questions, and then I'm sure then you will meet the right people that will help you take it forward. All right, I hope that answers your questions, Edwin. If it doesn't, you can, maybe in the chat box, give a bit more context. All right, next. How do you solve disagreement between friends in a business setting? Talk about it is probably how I would say just for me, it's very important to know that we are not being personal. Like the disagreement has nothing to do with you as a person, but it's with the situation at hand. So, take emotions out of it and then just address the problem. Um, Between founders, like startup founders, we have sent founders to, those marriage counseling therapy thing, because founders have communication issues just like couples do. So it's not that different really. So we actually know of quite a number of founders that because of disagreement, not talking to each other, you can tell, say you're working for a company and then the two founder are at odds. So then they give you different direction. One person say this, then the other person say the other thing. And then the whole team don't know what to do. They don't want to, piss each other off, and they don't want to get into the mess. So then it slows the whole company down. So especially when it comes to decision making, so solving the conflict quick and fast is very important, and communications is very important as well. So I would say, find a mediator, take emotions out of this and solve it. Okay, yes, I definitely need to wrap this up as well. Maybe let's do, I think we can, there's just one
Let's do
more
like,
question.
yeah, one more question would be good.
Okay, what are the challenges you face when managing GDSC? This is a trick question, because when we're managing, I'm not managing one community, right? I have about 200 communities under my care. So when I'm looking at all of these communities, my biggest challenge is whether or not they are sharing with me what they are achieving. Because from a program at the level that I'm looking at, I'm looking for also budget to support these programs. And if they don't report the impact or share the impact of what they are doing, then I won't be able to share the impact of what I am doing with them. So very often people run their own events, run their own thing, but they don't share the impact. So maybe there's somebody in their community that really benefited from the event that they are running, or the hackathon, the skills that they have learned. But these stories and these impact stories don't actually get passed on to me. Then I can't articulate the impact to give more investment to Southeast Asia. So that's probably my main challenge, to be very, very candid. Yeah. And then, you know what? I'll answer the last one in about 30 seconds. The traits that you look for in a team. Good people, like you say, there are so many sayings that say, don't work with like smart assholes. We don't do that. It's better to have somebody who have the right attitude, and we can train the aptitude. Especially when you're thinking about volunteer community, the attitude is the most important. Whether or not they are technically capable, no need, find a speaker that is very technical and ask them to come and speak at the event. Better to find somebody with a good attitude, who's passionate and have the same values as you. All right, I hope that answers most of the question. If not, you can feel free to reach out to me on Instagram or LinkedIn and so on. Just let me know that you meet me here. If not, I might ignore you. So because I'm trying to get on top of my inbox on a daily basis. Yeah, thank you so much for having me today. I had a lot of fun doing these questions. I hope you learn as much as I did.
Yep. Thank you so much, Ms. Janice, for your enriching and insightful sharing on like the building of tech communities and all the insights you gave during the Q&A session. For the rest of the questions, we can kind of compile them and send it to you in an email afterwards. Would that be okay?
Sure. If you'd like me to answer them, I can do that.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So today we have come to the end of this session. Thank you so much for attending. Also, please follow us on SIT Geeks on Instagram to join our upcoming events. So tomorrow we have Mr. Tuya's talk on tackling technical interviews at 7 p.m. and also a Firebase workshop on 29th April at SIT at NYP. So Joey will be dropping the links in chat. So that's it for today. Thank you all and have a good day.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you, Janice.
Thank you.